Hello and welcome to this webinar, our introduction to a new simple standard newsletter, an introduction to the reworks and upgrades that we have done. First of all, some of you may know me. To those who don't, my name is Ruth. I work in the Copenhagen office as part of the support team. So if you have any questions, there is a good chance that you are going to talk to me either on the phone or in writing. A short introduction to GoToWebinar. Some of you may have used it before for other webinars. If not, there is the possibility to ask questions. So you have a little panel that says questions, and there you can type in your question and it will show up on my other screen. So if I look up, I'm just checking if there are any questions. So first of all, why did we do a redesign of the newsletter? We wanted to figure out how to make the newsletter, first of all, look better overall. Second, to make it look better on mobile as well, as a lot of people are increasingly using their phones to check their email and pretty much everything. So it is important that the newsletter also looks good on a mobile device. And third, we wanted to add some new functionalities, like, for example, more options for personalization and to also be able to include donation projects. So, as opposed to the studio newsletter, which is a very big expression in complexity and a very creative process, the standard newsletter that is available to everyone, regardless of whether or not you have purchased Studio, offers a very simple, practical, everyday approach that still looks clean-cut and very, very good, both on mobile and on your normal desktop computer. So, our thought process was that we want to have the newsletter so simple that basically all you need is a good headline. To get to the newsletter, this has not changed. You still click on the switcher and go to the people module. And in the sidebar over here, to messages, where you have your overview, all of this is the same. You see the messages you've sent, the ones that are scheduled, and your drafts. And in the create button, there is our new and improved standard newsletter. Now, if you click on this, you will see an overview, and this is quite different from what it used to be. I'm going to explain in detail what it is that you're seeing here. So, when you click on Create, you are directly in the design part of the newsletter, where you design the newsletter. This is to and from. We're going to look into that in a second. The More button, where you can either copy the message you are creating or delete it. And of course, save. And once your newsletter is done, send. So what is that you see here? First of all, this is the logo, as you used to at the top of the newsletter. And down here, the other information, the name of your church, the email address this is coming from, and the ability to unsubscribe from the newsletter if parishioners wish to do so. A new thing to the side here is this option field, where you can add a pre-header text, which is kind of like an appetizer for your newsletter. So when people see this in their email, they will see a little short summary of what this newsletter is about. It is not the same as the subject line. It's a little preview appetizer kind of thing. At the bottom here, you do have now the ability, this is new, to change the color to fit the color that your church is using. So you can change this color in two different ways. One is for this message only. So if you, for example, have differently themed newsletters maybe, and you say, well, this is the newsletter where I focus on the churchyard and all the work around it, so I want it to be green. You just click in here and you change it to green. And then you see this is a preview of what this is going to look like. This is what the button is going to look like and the footer. So the field down here is the footer. And it is going to look like that. If you just wanted to try out what it looks like and you want to go back to your default color, you can click here and it's going to go back to what it was before. Took a little while because I'm sharing my screen, but you can see it's saved automatically and it's back to the pink. If you want to change the color overall for your entire organization, maybe your church changed their color, no problem. You can go to the settings to change your default color. Just click here and it's going to send you to the church desk settings. So it's more or less the shortcut for clicking here, going to church desk settings, and then going to the people settings. This is where you set the email address that is going to be shown in the footer. And if you scroll further down, this is where you change the logo. This is also new. It used to be that you had to go to the website module to change the logo. We have changed that as it did not make a lot of sense, to be honest. And you can now find it in the people settings where it belongs and upload a new logo. And right underneath is where you change the default color. So if you click in here, you also get to pick a different color. And when you pick a different one, it's going to change. You click on save and you go back. And if you were to go with a different color, it would now be a different color here in the preview. And of course, down below, I like the pink, so we're sticking with that. So what are we going to do now? We want to create a newsletter, and coming back to our approach that all you need is a good headline, you will need a headline. The headline is what is going to be shown here. This is the topic of your newsletter. You can either add it in here, or you can go to the to and from and add it here in the subject line. So if I add my topic here, let's say it's let's help Ukraine. You also can add an emoji if that is something you want. Here we go. Would look like this. This is now also going to show up here. And if I make any changes here through the edit button, it is also automatically going to show up here. So it creates a consistency in your subject line and your headline. It's going to show here. And this is where you would add the pre-header text right here to the side. So what people would see is got a message from your church with this subject line. And then you can write more information, a newsletter about what we do to help Ukraine. So this is what people would then see when they first see the email in their email client. We already have a headline. We want a good picture. This is more or less what you're used to. You move here, click the button to select an image, you click on it, go to your folder, select an image, click on select, and after a short period of waiting, you see it here. If you want a different image, you can change it. You could also just remove the image again, and you can crop it. Looks like this, and you can move it around, adjust everything that you're used to. Click on Save, and there it is. So now that we have a logo, the color, the picture, and a headline, what else can you do? This is something that you're all more or less familiar with. It is a text editor. So these are your options. And this, if you click in here, in this white space, is where your text goes. So this is where you would write your personal message to your parishioners. So you would say either Dear Parish, or what you could also do is say Dear, and then you can add a placeholder, which is insert attribute, where it can be Dear First Name, and then the system is automatically going to fill in the first name of the recipient of this email. You could say Dear First Name. Here is our newsletter on what we are doing in our parish to help Ukraine. All the best, your parish, for example. You do have personalization options here. So apart from being able to insert these placeholders, you can play around a little bit with the text to make it look more individual. So, for example, these options, you know, this is just make it bold, have it in italics, you can underline it, you can select different fonts. These are the ones we currently offer. You can change the size. So for example, if you would like to have this a little bigger, you could do that. You could also have it even bigger. It would look like this. You can change the color of the text. Let's pick this one. And it's going to look like that. You could add lists if that is something that you want. So either the unordered list or the ordered list. And you can change the alignment of the text as you're used to from other text editors. Emojis, I've already mentioned. And you can insert links. If you click on here, you can either choose something from your church desk. This is the text where you would write, for example, click here to see the last sermon on YouTube. And then you would add in the URL. And then you would insert it into your message. So now that we have written a personalized message with the new personalization options, we are going to fill the newsletter with actual content. And the first thing that you can add are blocks. This order is something that is fixed, and blocks as the source of news and what is going on in your parish are first. You do have the possibility to add an option, a headline. If you leave it blank, there's just going to be nothing there. It's just going to be the list of the blocks with no headline. If you would like to add a headline, you just click on add, and you can say blocks about Ukraine. There it is. And then you can add blocks. Now, if you click here, you will have a list. You could search for certain block titles if you have a lot of blocks. In this case, we're going to choose this one and that one. And we're going to hit save. And it's going to load. And it's going to look like this. So you have the title, the text, and then the image to the right. And it's going to look nice, tidy, informative, clear-cut, and modern. You do have the ability to add optional headlines for every part of the newsletter. If you don't, I'm going to leave this empty so you can see the contrast. You can always add them through the add button to the right. I'm going to add some events so you can see what it's going to look like. So we do have this prayer and a concert. Hit save. The search options are some that you're already used to from ChurchDesk, so you can search by category, location, and by date. I see that there's 2 questions. I'm going to get to them in a second. So I'm just going to add those so I can show you. And it looks like this. All right, I'm going to have a look at the questions. I'm going to read them out loud so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Hi, I added an emoji to my body text of my newsletter today. When I sent myself a test message of the newsletter, the emoji came out as a question mark. I had to delete it as I didn't want a question mark in the body text. Is this a bug or did I do something wrong? This is hard to say. It might be a display issue. If you could tell us, maybe just write a message to support@churchdesk.com and say which emoji it was that you used and which program it was that it appeared as a question mark in, we can determine what kind of issue this is exactly, but just from the description, I'm not able to say why it happened. The other question is, can you change the order to have events first? No, this is not a thing. So the only way to have events first would be to add no blocks, because then the block section would just be empty and it would not be shown. And then you would have events. But if you have blocks and events, the blocks are first. If you have further questions, just add them in. I'm going to just check and answer them as we go. A new feature that we have now is donations. You can now add donations to a newsletter. That was something that we did not have before. So if you wanted to add a headline, you could do it through the add button, or you can just directly add your donation, which is here. You can see, you can search, and this is your overview. So you just scroll down until you find the correct one, set the tick and save it. And there's your donation project with the donate button right underneath the image. You can add several donations. I'm going to go with one, but if you add several donations, it's going to look the same more or less as with the blogs and with the events. If you don't have a picture, it's just going to show the text to the left and the space to the right is going to be blank. And lastly, you can add forms. In this case, I'm going to add a title again, just so that in the finished version, you are going to see what that is going to look like. So just going to say sign up form for the concert. That's the title. And I'm going to add my form. You can either search or just scroll through depending on how many forms you have. And you can do this form, hit save. And it's going to show up here. We don't have an image for this. It's just a sign up button. And this is what it is going to look like. One more option that you have for the events. Right now it just shows what it is and when it takes place. If you have several places, several different places, and it's important that people know where it is, and you want to show that information without the people having to click on the event first, you have the option to click here and have the location shown. It's going to be shown underneath here. So we have designed a newsletter. We can just check Do you like this? Looks good. If you're a little bit pressed for time and maybe just want to save it as a draft and continue later, just hit save and exit, go do something else, come back later. It's going to be in your overview under drafts. You can also just always hit save to be on the safe side, and your message is saved. Now we go to the to and from part because we actually want to send this out. So this is where you choose where it's going to be sent from, either you as a person or the church as an entity. I'm going to leave it as this for now. And here you decide who should see this. I want everyone to see it, but you could also just send it to the list for the family newsletter or the choir, depending on who this newsletter is targeting. This is the subject line, which is the same as the headline. Here you can see who is going to get your message according to what kind of list you picked here. And you now have a preview function. So down here on the left side, you have the possibility to see what it's going to look like on a desktop. So when you view the newsletter on a desktop, it's going to look like this. There's a logo, the image. This is our text with a different color. These are our blocks. There's the headline. This is what it looks like when you do not pick a headline. It's just going to be listed, and the different parts are going to be separated by this little line. And there's our donation project. And here is the headline I added to the sign up form. And there's the sign up button that is going to link to the form so people can sign up and go to your concert. As I've mentioned, the newsletter is very mobile friendly. So if you want to know what it looks like on a mobile without actually sending it to yourself and then checking on your phone, you can just click here and see what it's going to look like when people view it on their phone. So we have our little phone here, and this is what it is going to look like on a phone. Very modern and very informative. Nothing weird going on like it sometimes can in older versions. And this is what your newsletter is going to look like when you send it out. So if you want to send it out, the button is over here. Just quick mention of the More button. You can copy the newsletter you just made, or you can delete it. We want to send it out, so this is something you already know. You can send a test message. You can schedule it to be sent out later, so maybe you want to send it out tomorrow, but you're not in the office tomorrow. Just schedule it hitting this button, or you can send it right now, which is what we are going to do. It's going to ask you if you want to send the message right now. Yes. All right. So you see that the message is being sent, and you get the option to share your newsletter. Why would you want to share the newsletter? Well, maybe some people don't check their email all the time. Maybe some people are not subscribed. Maybe some people don't even know that your church has a newsletter because they're new and they just moved here. So what you can do is copy this link through this button. Just click on it and that says it's copied. And then you can post this link on Facebook or put it in an email and send it to someone when someone is like, oh, I would also like to get the newsletter. Can you send it to me? Then you can just put this link in an email. You can also put it on your website to have a sort of newsletter archive so people can check, okay, which newsletters were sent out, what is going on in this parish. Then you can close it, and then you see your message statistics. If you need the share link again, it's right up here with the More button. You can share your message, and you can also find it if you're in Messages. There's a newsletter that we send out. We click on it, and then we are in the overview. Again, More, share your message, and there we go. And if you click on it, get the link again, can copy it. It's copied, and that's where you will always find your link. So this was everything concerning our new and improved standard newsletter. If there are any further questions, I'm going to wait a minute and check if someone is writing. So there's going to be a minute or so of awkward silence where I take a sip of tea and check if anyone is writing a message. Oh, thank you, Mitzi. I would also like to thank all of you for attending this webinar and being interested in our new newsletter feature and what we changed and maybe also why. Was lovely having you. And thank you, Fenella. That's really nice. I hope you all have a good day and soon a good weekend. And if there's any questions, you know, you can always up here get help, ask us something, or just call in. We're here, and I'm looking forward to maybe speaking to you again. Have a nice day, and goodbye.